Welcome, everyone. We'll be beginning shortly. All right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's live virtual program. I'm Amber from the Reference Adult Services Department here at the library. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have a few housekeeping items to share before we start the presentation. Tonight's program is scheduled to run until 8 p.m. During the program, all attendees will be muted. So if you have any technical issues, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try to help you out. All chat message will only be visible to hosts and co-hosts and monitored by me. There will be a Q&A session after the presentation. So throughout, if you have any questions, put those in the chat and we'll address as many as we can before the time ends. Subtitles have been enabled for this program. So if you want to turn these off, you can click the arrow next to live transcript and hide subtitles. Tonight's program is also being recorded and will be available to watch on the library's YouTube channel soon after the program in a few days. So without further ado, I can turn things over to Ellen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Ellen Lafferty, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Livingston County. And I want to definitely take a moment right now to thank the Howell Carnegie Library for hosting us this evening, and especially our technology host, Amber Carnahan, for making this platform possible. The League of Women Voters of Livingston County are pleased to host another educational evening for you. For those who are new to our public forums, the League is proud to be a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We neither support nor oppose any candidates or political parties, but always are working on vital issues of concerns to our members and to the Livingston County public. Understanding the operations of your tax-funded local libraries fits perfectly into our mission. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook or find out more about the League on our webpage, lwvlivingstonco.org. Our guests are here this evening representing all 6 of the community libraries here in Livingston County, and we are so honored to host this program tonight. As someone who spent countless hours in the Redford Library in Northwest Detroit, where I grew up, I am a bona fide library geek. And so they're in my heart. I'm proud to introduce to you this evening our library directors, Holly Ward Lamb from Howell, Cindy Mack from Brighton, Holly Hentz of Hamburg, Sarah Neidert of Heartland, Hope Siasoco of Pinckney, and Mary Hudson from Fowlerville. All are here to share their extensive knowledge about their operations, how they collaborate together, funding, the list goes on. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions of our county's top librarians about anything you wish to know once the presentation is complete. So without further ado, I'm going to turn your attention over to our fabulous library directors.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Mack from the Brighton Library. One of the things we want to quickly do is just quickly provide an overview of the populations that we serve and the communities that we serve. So the Brighton District Library serves around 46,000 residents in Livingston County, including the city of Brighton, Green Oak Township, and portions of Genoa Township and Brighton Township.
And my name is Sarah Neidert. I work as the new director of the Cromaine District Library, which is in Heartland. We serve just under 30,000 residents in areas that compose the Heartland Consolidated School District. So I have 6 different townships, all of Heartland Townships and part of Brighton, Deerfield, Genoa, Osceola, and Tyrone Townships.
I'm the director of the Hamburg Township Library, and we serve Hamburg Township. So ours is a little bit easier to say. We don't have that many different districts to deal with. And we have a little over 21,000 that we service.
I'm Mary Hudson, interim director of the Fowlerville District Library. We are a bit smaller. We serve about 17,000 with Fowlerville residents and surrounding townships. and we have about 8,000 active borrowers.
Good evening. I am Holly Ward Lamb at the Hull Carnegie District Library. We serve 58,718 people based on the last census. We serve pretty much the same boundaries as the Howell Public School District, so that 165 square miles or so, with too many townships for me to include individually.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hope Siasoco, and I'm the director for the Pinckney Community Public Library in Pinckney, Michigan. And we actually, I believe, is the smallest area because we're still a class 3 library. Our population is about a little over 11,000. And we have our primary service area is the Village of Pinckney and Putnam Township, along with portions of the Unadilla and Marion Townships.
So we assumed that people would want to know, since we've mentioned who we serve and how big our population is, how libraries are funded and how they're governed. So all of the libraries in Livingston County receive over 90% of their funding from local property taxes. Each of us is going to drop our specific percentage into the chat at this point. Each library also receives a small percentage of money from the state and also from county penal fine monies. And we also fundraise. Most of us are supported by a Friends of the Library group, which is an integral part of our fundraising capabilities. Because we're tax funded, each public library is governed, because all libraries are tax funded, each public library is governed by a board of directors or trustees. These trustees have a fiduciary responsibility, which means they are elected or appointed to act in the best interest of the taxpayers in that area. So in Livingston County, we have board members that are either elected or appointed to all the various libraries. For district libraries, which is Brighton, Cromaine, and Fowlerville, we have elected boards that serve 4-year terms. 7 people are on each board. We have appointed boards. Pinckney has 5 board members. 2 are appointed by the Pinckney Village Council. 3 are appointed by the Putnam Township Council. Howell's board is also appointed. There's 7 total members. 3 are appointed by Howell City Council and 4 are appointed by Howell Public Schools School Board. I left out the Township Library, which is Hamburg. They are elected. And Holly, I didn't put the number in my notes, but I believe it's probably 6. Okay. And they are elected. So the important part, and part of why the League of Women Voters invited us to speak to you, is because being taxpayer funded and having elected boards, obviously there's a voting component to how we run things. And now I will push over to Hope with why public libraries exist.
Hi, I get the sexy part. I get to explain what libraries are about. The purpose of a library is actually, we are repositories of information. Okay, so that's the basic essence of what a library is. We collect and store data, our information. We give access to our people for that information, and we also archive and preserve that information. For public libraries, most specifically, we tend to focus a lot on like community engagement and access. So giving access to information is important to us. So basically, what we tend to do is like we put that together in our mission and our vision. So all of our, libraries actually do have a mission statement. Some of us even have vision statements, and it's different. It has little differences based on like the population that we serve, but for the most part, there are common themes within all of our missions and vision. And those are basically, they're guided by like what we consider to be the focus of what our libraries are giving to our population. And that would include principles that public libraries have, which are information access. We also put importance in the confidentiality and privacy of the people that, that come to us and use our libraries. And then we also believe very heavily on democracy and diversity and education and lifelong learning, and also community engagement, which I've mentioned, as well as intellectual freedom. and education, and basically we would like to foster lifelong learning and reading habits, let's just say. And all of that is also guided, all those principles, when we establish our mission statements, are reflected as well in the professional standards that our field of library science has. That's about the sexy part. So I will toss it over to Cindy now.
One of the things we're really, really fortunate about in Livingston County, being a bit of a smaller library, is that we have locally with the 6 libraries have a great collaborative relationship with one another, both professionally and informally. So to give a broad understanding, it's a bit, when we talk about that, there's also a larger component I'm going to talk about in libraries in general, because libraries really have this great relationship about working together, not even just locally in Livingston County, but statewide and nationally. It's definitely a thing of what resources can we help you provide your patrons? What materials can we copy, or what materials would we like to share? So collaboration and working together is a core belief of those of us in the library profession. So when we talk about working together, and most of us are well aware of, you can go to your library and you can interlibrary loan a book, but it gets a little tricky in Livingston County with us 6 libraries, because there might be a different way you're interlibrarying that book. So the most example that we're all similar with is through MELCAT with statewide sharing. The Library of Michigan has a resource. Most library users are aware of it. Not everybody is, but it's called MELCAT, and you can search the statewide catalog and request materials from libraries anywhere across the state. And it's really an interesting resource because you could find a really old book, per se, in a library. I'm originally from Ishpeming in the UP, an old Carnegie library, and they have books from years ago. And a patron from Metro Detroit can request that book for free. They're going to request it. They have to have their library card, and it's going to get shipped all the way from the UP to their home library, and they're going to be able to check out that book. So it's an amazing resource. So some of the libraries, every library is part of that system. But then we get a little bit narrowed down and we talk about the cooperative level. We have regional cooperative services throughout the state. I believe there are 6 or 7 cooperatives. And what they do is regionally, they provide a wide variety of services to the libraries that are part of them. The vast majorities of libraries within the state are part of a cooperative, but it's not every library is part of a cooperative. And what a cooperative does is it can provide training. It can provide access to simple things like having specialized catalogers who will provide mark records and input information of resources that you have. It also, though, can provide access to a shared automation system. Cromaine and Brighton are part of that shared system. So if you go onto our website and search our catalog, you're actually able to access about 50 libraries in Metro Detroit who are part of the shared system. And with there, it's easy enough, it's cost effective, but it also provides a really easy access to say, oh, well, my home library doesn't have this, but I can instantly click on place a hold and we can get it from another library. There's a variety of reasons, though, why your local library might not be part of a shared system. And we're not going to venture down that road. But what would happen for those libraries who aren't part of that shared system? They're definitely going to be able to, same idea, go through MELCAT and access that material for you. You're also, depending on the library and the level of service, you're going to be able to use your library card in Livingston County at a neighboring library. Now, some of it gets a little tricky depending on contracts and electronic resources and new materials. But overall, the goal is that I can go over to Pinckney and I can check out a resource from them, and vice versa, the same way. At the local level, besides having access to use our community libraries, we really believe in finding ways to informally and formally train and educate our peers and ourselves. One of the things that we've consistently done for years is a trustee training each fall. And it's kind of each year we choose a hot topic, or a topic that is of interest or of value. And we're able to get a presenter or speaker to come in and do a training, not just to directors, but also to trustees. And this is a really great opportunity because it provides also networking. A lot of trustees, they go to a meeting once or twice a month and they're there, but when they get to network with other trustees and people who are in a very similar role as them, it's a great opportunity to learn and to kind of, learn and hash things out and just have really great conversations. In addition, at the local level, the directors, we are in regular contact with each other. We're very, very lucky about that. It could be very casual email sent to the group of us saying, hey, how have you encountered this? Or do you have a policy on this? It also could be, for example, during COVID, during the pandemic, we actually met on a frequent basis because we wanted to know locally what our libraries were doing. When you think about being part of TLN, it's a huge regional system. We're great for their services, but sometimes Livingston County is different than what's happening in Royal Oak per se, or Birmingham. And making decisions for our communities, when we can speak with directors on a local level who understand our communities, and we can make decisions and get feedback that way, has been a tremendous asset to us. Additionally, we provide joint programming opportunities. Most specifically, I should say joint programming opportunities and marketing opportunities, depending on it. The perfect example of that is we attended Community Connect. This past February, we had a table there and resources. So it's a perfect example of outreach and community events that we really like to do together as Livingston Libraries. And finally, our youth librarians have an active collaboration together. They meet frequently and they do planning and networking, and it's really been extremely beneficial to the youth librarians in Livingston County. So overall, it's a great collaborative partnership and one where we're all willing to share and to partner together. So we are grateful for that. So I'm going to pass it along to Mary, and she's going to talk about examples of community involvement in other partnerships.
All right, that is one of my favorite topics. I think libraries get to be like the hub of the town. And what we will do is serve on boards and panels, and we just get involved with whatever is going on. So maybe with the Livingston County United Way, you might find us at a day of caring, doing building projects for seniors or providing food. We would join the Rotary, so you might be flipping pancakes on a Saturday afternoon or something. I think that's really important, stay connected with the community, and there is so much good that we can do also. We in Fowlerville, we have a business association that we are, all the Fowlerville business leaders are there, and the library is part of it. So what might happen is, like when they're having their big Christmas parade, for instance, they might need something from us. And next year they were already saying they needed a place for Santa to see the kids, because we had a fire hall in town and they just moved and got a new building outside of the village limits. And they were asking, could the kids see Santa at the library? And of course we said yes. And then also, like, we had the Grinch in our parking lot, and they all came there to see the Grinch this year. Sometimes they just need to use our parking lot to have some handicap parking available because we're close to the center of town. So we're always happy to work with groups on things like that, service organizations. We host blood drives. We have pop-ups too, where we'll go into the schools and go into the lunchrooms to promote our programs, to get the kids reading, let them know we have graphic novels if that's what they like. And then even taking books into care homes, and then we'd give them a special due date that when we come back in a month or something, we'll take a whole fresh set of books. You might find a blood drive going on in your local library. Also, such things as Michigan Works we've hosted, where we might have a job fair there, and someone is just providing the space, providing a program room for groups to come in and hopefully have a job fair and help people. We are a Toys for Tots collection site. There's a women's group that puts up a giving tree, and people can take angel tags to do some shopping. More often than not, it's the staff that takes them, and we will get things for people. We are always having a food collection at our library, canned food drives. It's ongoing. And here in Fowlerville, it helps the Family Impact Center. So one of our patrons is our go-between, and we'll look in that box every week and see if anyone brought some cans of soup or something, and she'll take it right over to the pantry for us. More recently, we've just been collaborating with Gleaners, and they had a food stand in our village office, but they don't get a lot of traffic there. And when I went over to look, when they proposed taking it over to the library, I noticed there were some beautiful strawberries and apples and things, but they were getting furry. They were getting past the date because no one was taking them. So I asked our board of directors, could we have this in our library? They okayed it. Gleaners does everything. They set up the fruit stand. They give you bags to take the fruits and vegetables home. And it was like almost gone in one day. So I think the library is a definite place for that. And we help some of the people in our community that don't have a good internet connection, which is a big problem in Fowlerville. So you see what people are doing on our computers, and you're just so glad we're there, because maybe they're doing their taxes, or maybe they're getting an appointment for Secretary of State, or, you know, so many important things that need to happen on computer nowadays. We also like to partner with local schools very much. And we've been having a teacher come and bring her 7th graders hours before the library opens. She brings her first hour class over. They get there around 7:30 in the morning. This is a little hard after the time change, but we were there. And the kids get a chance to go to the library kind of in a private time. And the teacher gave them an assignment to get 3 books, and we checked them all out. And they were on their way walking back to school. But we look for opportunities like that where the kids can be comfortable at the library. Some of the comments we got from some of the kids, they were saying, I've never had my own library card before. And it just made us really glad that we did that. We also partner with the Salvation Army, and in the summer, they will do a summer lunch bunch where they bring lunch. I think some of the kids sometimes maybe at school get a good hot lunch, but then in the summer, there can be a little more food insecurity. So they will come to our parking lot at a certain time, and people can just drive up and they just give anybody lunch. You don't have to qualify. It's just for anybody that comes. We also have things that happen where like a mitten tree or something. We have people that like to crochet hats and gloves and things, and then we put them out. And if you would like one or you need one, just take it. It might be on a tree before Christmas time, and then we might string it on our front desk just on ribbon, and you can still take what you need for the cold winter months. I think libraries do a good job of just seeing what the needs are right around them and trying to be a part of helping to make things better. And I think Holly is going to talk about materials to purchase.
Thanks. I get the exciting topic of material selection, or how does the library decide what to purchase? So I'm going to start at a very high level, and I'm going to start with the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which, just in case you can't remember it and recite it off the top of your head, reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, interestingly enough, case law defined that the freedom of speech under the First Amendment includes the right to receive information, and that people in the United States have a constitutional right to information, and a fundamental way to exercise that right is through a public library. So there we make that connection to Hope, who mentioned that libraries are all about democracy. The Michigan Constitution also includes the right to access a public library. So Hope mentioned the concept of intellectual freedom, which is one that gets talked about a lot in libraries. I'm going to give it a definition. We have lots of conversations around here sometimes that, do people know what we mean when we talk about intellectual freedom? That is the right of every person to seek and receive information about any topic from multiple points of view. It includes the right to hold, receive, and share ideas and information. All people have the right to intellectual freedom, including children and teenagers. Well, as you can imagine, public libraries serve a diverse public. This is true everywhere, even including Livingston County. Your public library strives to provide informational, educational, and entertainment materials. From the latest bestsellers to materials that will introduce you to a new topic or point of view. Obviously, libraries cannot purchase everything. There are space and budget constraints. Material selection in your local library is guided by a library's collection development policy. This is, in basic to our collection development policies are the Library Bill of Rights and the freedom to read. So our collection development policies address intellectual freedom and access. The library assures free access to its holdings. Libraries do not label books the way that the movie industry rates movies. Authors and publishers do provide guidance on recommended ages, but each library looks at their collections and where a book fits best. Public libraries do not act in loco parentis. The right and responsibility to decide what a child can or cannot have access to is that of each child's parent or legal guardians. Our collection development policies include the criteria for selection of materials, and they can include things such as current and anticipated needs and interests of our community, requests from the public, how material relates to the existing collections and other materials on that subject, what the cost is of the item in question in relation to its use and or enhancement of the collection and other materials on the subject, the availability of an item elsewhere through cooperative borrowing agreements. So when Cindy mentioned Melcat or being part of the shared system, the available space in our libraries can be a big one as to what we buy and what we don't. There's also a process within our collection development policies by which a library patron can request what we at Howell call the reconsideration of library materials if they find any portion of our collection objectionable. So you have to fill out a form as part of the process, and the form will ask questions such as, what was the title of the material? We want to know who is requesting the review, so we obviously can respond. We ask, what did you find objectionable in the item? And we ask people to be specific so we know what item what we're talking about. We'll ask if people read or viewed or listened to the item in its entirety. We will ask what might result from an individual experiencing this specific work. What do you believe the purpose of the work is? Are you aware of reviews of this work by professional critics? What action do you believe the library should take concerning this? And is there something you would recommend in replacement of this title? So the policies also outline what we do when we receive a request for reconsideration, the steps that are taken, etc. So the reality is that a really good public library has something that will offend everyone. If I invited everybody on this call to the library and said, go at it, see if you can find something in the Howell Library you disagree with, everyone would be able to find something. I guarantee it. The beautiful thing about a library, though, is you can just leave those particular books on the shelf. You don't have to check them out. You don't have to read them. You don't have to look at them. I jokingly say that I'm a vegetarian and the books on grilling meat are of no interest, but I will take the books on grilling vegetables every time. So what is interesting, as a staff member pointed out to me today, that Jody Pico recently wrote, and this is a quote, "There is absolutely nothing wrong with a parent deciding a certain book is not right for her child. There is a colossal problem with a parent deciding that, therefore, no child should be allowed to read that book. Take what interests you, leave what doesn't." And I want to end by saying, remember that library staff, we are a resource to help you locate the type of materials that fit your interest and or your values. And on that note, I'm going to hand it off to the other Holly in the county, to let you know that we are more than just books. Thank you.
We are so much more than just books. And I have a list here. I asked all the other libraries to give me some of their unique items, but some of the things that we're all pretty much have that a lot of people don't think about is meeting rooms, and we have all different size meeting rooms. Big meeting rooms that your HOA might want to use, down to individual study rooms you might need. And it runs the gamut of how to reserve those rooms. Generally speaking, they're going to be free and they're really nice. We all participate in the Michigan Activity Pass. This has been a growing program over the years. It's 400, we're over 450 different destinations you can go to across the whole state, and you get either free passes or discounted passes, and that has been just a wonderful, wonderful asset to everybody. We all have free Wi-Fi that it can go, excuse me, allergies. Most of us have it goes outside of the library building, so even after hours, you can access it in the library's parking lot or if they have gardens. Early learning or literacy kits. These are really fun for children who are struggling to learn to read. If they're having a hard time reading, they find other ways to learn a subject, and those have been really fun. We all do crafting classes and enrichment classes, all kinds of fun things with that. Many of you know our schools, the budgets have been cut, so the community education portion has been cut, and our libraries have been really picking up where they have had to leave off. Technology help has been a wonderful thing, where you can either drop in and get technology help, maybe you can do a class for the technology help. And with our library, we have National Honor Society students come in and sit with people to help. Genealogy help with different databases has been really nice, or person-to-person help has been nice. We all offer ebooks and e-audiobooks. I know for our library, 12% of our circulation is ebooks. Really nice service. You can use that 24/7. And along with that is also e-magazines. And then the interlibrary loans that we've talked about that a lot of people don't think about. You don't have to go library to library to library. Go to your home library, request what you need, and you usually get it in about a week. It's really, really handy. And some of the more interesting services from our area libraries, I loved learning this. Several of our libraries have seed libraries where you can check out different seeds and really go to town with your gardening. Cookie cutter collection, that's a fun one. Sewing machines, telescopes, sports equipment. I know this is from Pinckney. I love that program. Hope was just talking about how, I think last week we had the snow and all the kids were coming in, checking out all the stuff for snowboarding and whatnot. Metal detectors, how cool is that? Who thinks of going to the library for metal detectors? Exam proctoring, very, very nice service to have when you have so much distance education going on. Board games, yard games, and puzzles, how fun is that? Wheelchairs, memory care kits, and some of our libraries have maker spaces that have all of the stuff included with it, and maybe some 3D printers. So yeah, we're so much more than just books. And I think it's really nice when people think of their library first for something that they may not want to go out and purchase for a one-time use. Call your library, call an area library. I bet we're going to have it. So are we opening up for questions now?
Yes, Ellen, I think that was the end of our formal presentation. So
All
we didn't
right.
know if anyone had questions.
I don't see Amber right now, but I had a question while you were mentioning this. Do we have, I know Ann Arbor has one particular library that people can take historical records, and I thought, Howell had a department for historical records. And I know, see, some of you are shaking your heads. Is
Mhm.
there like a holding library for Livingston County records that, or is it everyone?
Ellen, we have the Howell Library, we have the Howell Area Archives. So we have a collection of materials related to Howell.
Mhm.
I know that Hope does the same at Pinckney. I'm pretty sure everybody
Each
has
do.
their own version of sort of that local history genealogy
Mhm.
component.
Yeah, and I'd like to speak to that. I think that each library, we all talk about all the things that we have that are the same. And we each have things we do for patrons about local history, but the local history is the one thing we have that's only local to our area. So, Heartland has a really rich history that we have in our building. There's a historical society down the street that has a small museum that's named after the librarian who was in the town for years. So it's actually a really rich place, and it's one thing where we can connect in a really unique way. And there's so much with digitization now, so there's lots of stuff going on there, but it isn't a county repository. We each have one for our area.
Perfect, thank you. Amber, I see Lisa R has her hand raised. If you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Let me see if I can allow them to unmute.
Okay.
I just had a couple comments in terms of a material being available to children. First of all, how do you reconcile with the Michigan obscenity law and not feel like that has to be followed? A person is guilty of obscenity when knowing the content and character of the material the person disseminates or possesses with intent to disseminate any obscene material. It's a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for not more than a year or a fine of not more than $100,000 or both. And then the same section, but letter C, child sexually abusive material means any depiction, whether made or produced by electronic, mechanical, or other means, including a developed or undeveloped photograph, picture, film, slide, video, electronic visual image, computer diskette, computer, and it goes on. And, my concern are with kids that come into the library without their parents. I mean, the book Genderqueer is a prime example of sexually explicit material. And these are images of a minor younger than 18 depicted in those books. How do you reconcile when these kids are coming in without their parents and the law states under the age of 18?
So first of all, this is Holly at Howell, and there is a federal law relating to the interstate commerce of obscene material. It's illegal, which means that any book that the library purchases at the time that they purchase it are not obscene materials, unless we are buying something locally that is being produced. If it came from our jobbers, the people that we buy books from, it crossed state lines and it doesn't meet the definition of something that's obscene. Obscenity is determined in a court of law. I've had numerous lawyers tell me that a court of law determines what obscenity is. In the state of Michigan, we follow the Miller test, which was, it's what's most followed in most parts of the United States. And it's a 3-part test. And it requires that a piece of work be taken as a whole, not just a particular picture on a page or a particular passage or passages. So in that regard, the Michigan obscenity laws that people have been referencing recently, they do not apply to the types of materials that are in our library, because we can't buy obscene materials because they can't cross state lines, and the people we're buying our books from are across state lines. Specifically to your question about genderqueer, we have it in Howell. It lives in our adult graphic novel section. So it is not on the kids section. It's not in the teen section here. It's in the adult section. I go back to what I said earlier in my part of the presentation. Libraries do not act in loco parentis. It is the right and the responsibility of parents to determine what their child uses, views, or whatever at the library. Being a parent's a hard job. I have an 18-year-old son, and I will attest to anyone that, it is the hardest job you will ever have. So I understand that. I understand the challenges of raising a child today. But it goes down to we serve the entire community, and we have a wide range of views that we serve in our community.
Okay, I don't see anyone else with their hand raised. If you would raise your hand, let's see. Let me see if I can. Amber, can you identify who has their hand raised?
Sure, looks like there's an Alex. I can ask to unmute that one.
Alec, you want to start?
Thank you very much. Holly, Liam, I just would like you to please clarify your commentary about the interstate commerce. Does that mean to say that the Interstate Commerce Commission has determined that such material is not obscene, therefore it is available? So I have a two-part question. So if you want to answer that, I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah. Let's do them each one at a time, because then I'll manage to answer both of them. Materials are determined obscene by courts of law. So when materials are purchased at that point in time, they are not considered obscene. They don't meet the standards of the Miller test.
Okay.
So unless an item is determined obscene in a court of law, if we had a book in the library right now that a court of law determined was obscene, we would have to remove it from the shelves. We don't have those sorts of materials in the library that are legally considered obscene. So anyways, your second part?
I appreciate that. Are you required by law to purchase any type of book to have on display in the library? Or how are the decisions made in terms of what books are purchased?
So there's a lot of things that go into consideration, as I said earlier. And I will speak for Howell. I don't want to put words into anybody else's mouth. If somebody disagrees or wants to add, please chime in. When we purchase materials here at the Howell Carnegie Library, there's lots of things that we consider. One is we do consider our local community. We do. But as I said earlier, our local community is diverse. And we strive to represent the diversity of our community and have those materials available for them. I will tell you that at Howell, talking to the adult services librarians, one of the things that we just wish that would be published more, because it's so popular in our community, is inspirational or Christian fiction. We buy it like crazy, and we hear we don't have enough, but we're pretty much buying whatever we can find. So we do attempt to have that balance and try to meet the needs and the interests of the community. Back to your first question, are we required to buy? I'm taking that to mean, is there a law either at the local, state, or federal level that tells us the materials we have to buy? No, that does not exist.
The reason, and just for context, this might be helpful. Sure. I live in Heartland, and the Heartland Library had, at least last summer, on display dozens of these grotesque genderqueer LGBTQ books. Very, very disgusting crap. And on display on the end caps of the aisles. And, you know, this isn't something that you have to ask for. It's in your face. And I just think it's very insulting. And my 13-year-old daughter is a volunteer at the library, and she's embarrassed by it. And I just wish that this stuff would not be displayed in such an in-your-face sort of manner. I think it's highly inappropriate.
One of the things that I wanted to clarify, the idea of, do libraries have to purchase certain materials? There is the idea with the First Amendment and censorship that if a library decides not to purchase a material because it's concerned that members of its community will find it offensive or they don't want it there, that's actually censorship on the other route. We do serve diverse communities. And if we're saying, okay, our majority Christian community is not going to want this, we're not going to purchase it, then what we're doing is we are censoring and limiting the First Amendment for other patrons in our community. And we totally understand. A lot of us are parents. I'm a mother first. I understand that there's materials in the public library that are going to be materials I wouldn't read to my child that could be considered offensive. That being said, we are cognizant of the fact we are firm believers in the First Amendment, and we're firm believers to provide access to information of all of the resources. When it becomes to debating the obscenity level of materials, that's difficult. And we really look to our publishers. We look to our staff, our professional staff, but we're also cognizant of the fact that we can't limit the materials we buy based on maybe 60% maybe won't approve it. There's a lot of books that I will tell you that I disapprove and I would never want my child to read, or myself I disagree with, but I would never limit them because of my personal beliefs. We understand this is a very, very sensitive topic, but we're also firm believers in the parents. You are your number one children's priority, and you need to be responsible in coming into the library. The library of today is not the library even of 30, 40 years ago. We're so many levels. But I will tell you, even 20, 30 years ago, when I was walking to my public library, I was getting things that my mom probably wouldn't have wanted me to read, but she wasn't cognizant enough to remember that. So we understand this is a very, very sensitive topic, but we are firm believers in the First Amendment, and we're firm believers of censorship and limiting our understanding and our beliefs that we in no right want to limit censorship in any way, shape, or form.
I have 3 more folks that have their hands up. Unfortunately, I see one has her name there, Claire. I see someone's with iPad and GoGo 3. So I'm going to go to Claire next, and iPad, then GoGo. But if you would please, if your name isn't in your identity, please state your name when you join us. Claire, I'm going to unmute you right now. You can unmute yourself, I believe.
Yep. I was
There you go.
wondering, I didn't hear a lot of discussion about what do you guys see as some of the challenges for the library for the future going forward? Especially in a world of technology and things like that. Is that going to be a challenge, or do you see it as being hand in hand and growing together?
Can I take this one?
Go for it.
Since we talked about missions, I get back to the sexy part. Thank you for the question. Thanks for the question, Claire. So yes, we do keep up with the profession as to where things are going, and yes, and especially like with the challenges that COVID presented. I don't know if you had the chance to look at the chats, but you can see also like the percentage of electronic materials that circulate now in our libraries, and like ours. I was shocked when we looked at ours. It looks like it's about 45-46% of our circulation now is through electronic materials, and that was I think an offshoot of when we were closed. So people missed libraries, and the other thing too is like that's also the reason why the presentation that Holly and Mary did with regards to like what we offer beyond the books, right, are things that like allow us to, and we know these things by following the profession and what, like in the sharings that we have, not just within our community, not just within our county, but also again, as like to tie it back to Cindy, like what we have with our shared systems. And also we do also meet as library directors through the Library of Michigan. They host a monthly, like meeting. And then beyond that, they also do, like a lot of, what do you call it? Workshops and offer, so those are the things that we do staff development for, professional development for, that we keep an eye out on, like what's coming down the pike. And yeah, and then we also listen to what our people have to say, right? Because if somebody comes over and it's a service that we don't offer. So for example, there's chatter currently about whether or not libraries, it's the library's place to offer EV charging stations in their parking lots, right? So those are the kinds of things that we kind of keep an eye out on, so that it's not just within our, like 4 walls, but also to see what our county is, where the profession is going, always with the eye towards, does this speak towards the mission of our library? Does this speak towards the vision that we're looking at as what we would like to offer our, our community in the future? Did that kind of answer your question, Claire, or is that too broad?
Oh, I think that's great. Thank you.
I'd like to chime in. I'm sorry, Cindy. For us, I mean, everything that Hope just said, but it all goes back to budgets, funding for the library. We want to service everybody. We want to offer everything, but funding is so huge. We just went through this with Hamburg. We had a millage last August. We asked for an increase, and that was so we could have the ebook service that everybody expects, that Overdrive. We couldn't afford it until then, and we had to really stomp for an increase in our budget so that we could get that. And then there are several renovations we're going to do to the library to bring it up to more modern needs that people have. And then just like what Hope was saying with the EV charging stations, who's going to pay for that? Do we have you put a quarter in there and get a charge, or the library putting the bill? It's expensive. And so funding is huge. Funding is a major. If we have stable funding, we can offer the services.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't bring that. Yes, it all comes down to money.
I would like to make mention when we talk about funding too, one of the things that is impacting us libraries that is really discussed more in municipalities is the issue of Headley and the Headley rollback. And, we all are fearful of what is a recession. Could a recession come? And will that impact our tax revenue? And now with a Headley rollback, we could actually see a reduction, because our Headley is from when it was approved how many years ago for us, it's rolled back, but it might not be collecting the same number of dollars if we hit a recession. So we are concerned about that. And we are, through our, the Michigan Library Association, they're kind of trying to consider to work with larger entities, including MML and a few other ones, to really look at ways to fix the issue with the Headley rollback, because it really
Tell people what that is, Cindy. Tell people.
Maybe somebody will be better than me, but what happens is, and I'm not going to explain this really well, so forgive me, but we all know that we own, and I think it's like Prop A or something like that, and they're connected. There's tax language that I'm not familiar with, but I'm familiar enough to know that we all purchase homes, and with the Headley rollback, it ensures that my home might have increased in value substantially, but I'm not paying the same amount of taxes on that due to the Headley rollback. At our inflation, it's like 5% or under, or something like that. So it's a very controlled rate that my taxes are increasing because of that protection. What happens though is you could have a recession like in 2008, and the housing market plummeted. And so the houses then really went back to, like, there aren't worth as much value on the books. That being said, if when you're collecting, originally you get at 1 mil, and through Headley rollback, you go down and you're at 9 mils, but you're still collecting a little more money because it's going out, the economy's going good. And you're going on to 8 mils, but you're still collecting more money. This is over years and years and years. Well, what happens when a recession hits? Boom. And that 0.8 mils is not collecting what it was a few years ago, and you're losing an astronomical amount of money. So you're going to have to go back to your community and say, hey, when you had that recession, that money it also affected the library, and I'm down a few $100,000, and I can't be providing that. I don't have to provide that. I am not able to provide services with. But my original millage said, hey, the community will agree to pay for 1 mill. So I probably did not explain it as well at all, but it's really kind of a complicated thing. And if you're interested, reach out to me and I can get you really the legalese on it, but it's just a tax issue that we're dealing with in municipalities and government entities.
Thank you, Cindy. We have 2 more questions and we only have about 5 minutes left, so hopefully we'll get to both of them. Again, I don't see a name to it. So if a person that has the identity of iPad, if you would please introduce yourself and unmute yourself, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Trisha, and I am, first of all, thank you for holding this. Appreciate that. Because we were talking about taxes, and I heard 90+% of libraries are funded by taxes. And then I also hear that, if the majority of a population that the district or whatever population is not for a certain content and libraries, the taxpayers of that area are actually paying for the library to be open. So it should be the voice of those people in the community of what content is in the library and what content is not. Saying that, I agree that, if there's adult content, it should be an adult section. I would suggest that an adult only label would be put there to protect children, because that's what this is about protecting children, and not necessarily because we're all different. We are all different. That is a given. So my question is, with the different things happening around the state, one being in Dearborn, which all the eyes of the country is on Dearborn. Then there was something in Royal Oak, I think recently, and then just recently in Lapeer, there was something regarding graphic content for children. So my question is there ideas or are there plans in case that comes to our county? What would happen? What is there plans in place? Are there ideas to kind of prevent that, or try to mitigate that, or just what's the thought process? Thank you.
Can I go back to your original question about the concerns of the local community? As we understand the communities that we serve, and it's going to be different. There are going to be communities we know here in Livingston County, especially, we do purchase a lot of gentle reads and Christian fiction. We are, though, the First Amendment of the Constitution and the Michigan Constitution really do dictate this. And it's one of those things people don't realize. I cannot say the vast majority of my patrons are Republican, more conservative, and only purchase materials for those because of the taxpayer dollars. The Constitution, the First Amendment, and this, forgive me, this isn't BSing you. This really, really isn't. They're held up in the court of laws, up to the Supreme Court, that to limiting materials. So that's what's really, really tricky about this, is we want our communities to understand we are professional degreed librarians who have a true understanding of really what that entails, and the fact that we have to be providing a wide variety of materials. We can go back and forth and we can really discuss some of these materials, and if we agree or we disagree, and that's such a personal topic. And we definitely, each of us directors are more than willing to have conversations with our patrons about that. When we look at what's happening in Dearborn, or in Lapeer, across the other side of the state, in a lot of ways, they do become a little bit of a local issue, because, and it's broad because it is a national issue, but I'm having this local conversation, and am I really trying to make sure my communities knows that my doors are open? I'm willing to have that conversation with them to really kind of figure out a point that really a dialogue of that we're serving all of our patrons. And it's difficult. And I will tell you, we are all concerned. We want to be great stewards to our taxpayer dollars. We want to be great libraries that everybody can come to. Every patron we want to be able to come and use our materials, access our services, and be content and be happy. But that's a difficult challenge nowadays. And we understand the way of the world and the seasons of publishers, and we could go on and on about that. But I will say, when we look at what's happening across the state, they're all individual and they're all different. And I think each of our local communities are going to be making decisions if it impacts us and how those decisions affect us. But they are challenges and we are well aware of them, but to pinpoint specific decisions on how would we respond, I think none of us don't even know enough of the details to get in the weeds of some of it, to be honest with you. We, you know, even in Lapeer, the issue of the Lapeer example, the issue is the county prosecutor is considering filing charges against the library director for materials that they have on the shelves. You know, do we worry about that? Yes. Do I worry that the local prosecutor could misread or interpret the law differently than the courts or my attorney, and I could end up in a situation? Yes, but I have to believe in my profession and I have to have the integrity to be the best library director for this community, upholding the Constitution, the First Amendment, censorship, and trying to serve all of my patrons to the best of my ability. I apologize. I probably did not answer any of that, but I tried to respond to all of it at one time. But please reach out to your local directors and have these conversations with us. We're more than willing to have these conversations with each of you.
Thank you, Cindy. Unfortunately, I am so sorry. I see a couple more hands up, but we have reached the end of our hour. And already Amber Callahan is working overtime for hosting this, being our technology host tonight. Please, if you registered for the event and you have questions, you are more than welcome to email back. We're going to share the recording of tonight's event, and you are welcome to send your questions to the directors, and they have done a phenomenal job trying to answer them as best they can. And again, I apologize, but our time is out. I truly want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. A huge thank you to Holly, Mary, Sarah, Holly, Cindy, and Hope for putting all of this great information together to you tonight. And of course, to Howell Library for hosting this event for us. Again, we'll be sure to share the recording on tonight's presentation. Our League of Women Voters has a YouTube channel. You can see it through the Livingston, LWVLivingstonCO.org. We have this and many other informative YouTube recordings on there. We're also grateful for the invaluable resources that are shared here tonight and that are in your local library. Please be sure to join us next month. The League is going to be hosting the Livingston County Health Director, Matt Bolong, at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 18th. And again, it's going to be a virtual presentation through the Howell Carnegie Library. We'll be sure to announce it on our Facebook page, our website, and you can always email through registration through the Howell Library. And we will send out emails as well. You can sign up for our emails by going to our website to find out what's going on next for the library. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Amber to wrap it up for us this evening.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I shared a link to our evaluation form in the chat. So if you could open that up and fill that out at some point. I'll also include it in the follow-up email in case you didn't get a chance tonight. The recording will probably be done by the end of the week. And so I'll include that in the follow-up email as well and share that with you. Visit our website, howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from us. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.